The expensive sports car growled to a halt outside Jack Wilson's modest garage, its engine making an unusual rattling sound. The driver, Malcolm Reed, CEO of Reed Enterprises, and well known for his collection of luxury vehicles, stepped out with a scowl. He watched critically as Jack, dressed in worn overalls, examined the engine. "You really think you can fix this?" Malcolm laughed, addressing his assistant while pointing at Jack. "This guy probably can't even afford the oil in this car." Jack's teenage daughter Emma froze behind the counter, eyes lowering as she heard the cruel comment. Her father continued working silently, his weathered hands moving with unexpected precision among the engine components. But beneath Jack's humble appearance lay a brilliant mind waiting to be discovered. This is the story of a man misjudged by appearances, whose quiet dignity and exceptional talent would soon shake the automotive world and teach those who mocked him the true meaning of respect. Jack Wilson had once been on track to become one of the country's top automotive engineers. His college professors recognized his natural talent, an almost intuitive understanding of how engines worked that went beyond textbook knowledge. But life took an unexpected turn when his wife died during childbirth, leaving him to raise Emma alone. With mounting medical bills and a newborn to care for, Jack abandoned his final year of engineering school to take whatever work he could find. Eventually, he settled in the small town of Millfield, opening a modest garage where he used his partial education and natural talent to fix local cars. The locals respected Jack for his honesty and fair prices, but few knew about the dreams he'd set aside. Each night, after tucking Emma in, he would sit at his small desk, sketching innovative engine designs by lamplight. These weren't just idle doodles, but sophisticated concepts that addressed efficiency problems major manufacturers hadn't yet solved. "Dad, why don't you ever tell customers about your designs?" Emma asked one evening as she helped organize receipts. Now 17, she'd grown up watching her father sketch innovative engine modifications in his worn notebook after hours. "Those are just dreams, Em," Jack replied with a gentle smile. "What matters is keeping a roof over our heads and saving for your college fund." Despite their financial struggles, their small apartment above the garage was filled with warmth. Jack never missed Emma's school events, taught her everything he knew about cars, and encouraged her academic ambitions. The walls of their living room displayed her academic achievements, rather than his own unrealized potential, a choice he'd never regretted. To the town, he was just another mechanic. To Emma, he was her hero, a man who sacrificed everything for her future. Malcolm Reed's arrival at Jack's garage wasn't a coincidence. The exclusive Hillcrest Country Club, where Malcolm and other local elites gathered, had recommended Jack's services reluctantly when Malcolm's preferred luxury mechanic was unavailable for his unexplained engine issue. "This shouldn't take too long," Jack said quietly after his initial inspection, wiping his hands on a rag. "The sound you're hearing is likely a problem with the—" "Just fix it," Malcolm interrupted, not bothering to look up from his phone. "I have a meeting at the club in 2 hours. Think you can manage that?" His tone suggested serious doubt. Jack nodded, already mentally diagnosing the issue. It wasn't a standard problem. Something subtle in the engine design was creating the unusual sound. As he worked, Malcolm paced around the garage, making loud phone calls and occasionally throwing glances of disdain at the modest surroundings. "Emma, can you hand me the specialized torque wrench?" Jack called out. As Emma brought the tool, Malcolm snickered. "Specialized? In this place?" He turned to his assistant. "Thomas, remind me why we're here again instead of having this towed to Pittsburgh." Thomas, looking uncomfortable, murmured something about time constraints. Jack didn't react to the insults, focusing instead on the complex engine before him. He noticed something unusual, a slight modification to the standard design that was causing undue pressure on a connecting component. It was a design flaw he'd actually written about in his personal notebooks years ago. "Mr. Reed," Jack ventured, "I think I found the issue. There's a design element in this model that creates unnecessary strain on—" "Oh, now you're an automotive engineer?" Malcolm laughed, looking around the garage performatively. "Where's your engineering degree hanging? Between the air fresheners and the calendar from 2017. Emma's face flushed with anger, but Jack gave her a subtle head shake. This wasn't the first wealthy client to treat him with contempt. I'm just saying what I observed, sir, Jack replied, evenly. I can fix it temporarily today, but the issue might return unless the design element is addressed. Just make it stop making that noise, Malcolm replied dismissively. I don't need engineering advice from a small-town mechanic. Jack worked methodically, making the necessary adjustments, while Malcolm continued his loud phone conversations, boasting about his recent acquisition of a struggling automotive parts company. The previous owners had no vision, Malcolm declared into his phone. The engineers were wasting resources on experimental designs that would never work commercially. I've already cut that department and moved production offshore. Jack's hands paused momentarily as he recognized the company name. It was one he'd once dreamed of working for. When Jack finished, the engine purred perfectly. He explained the temporary fix and the modest bill, which caused Malcolm to raise his eyebrows. That's it, hardly seems worth the drive. He tossed his premium credit card on the counter. I'm assuming you take real payment methods and not just chickens and handyman services. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she processed the payment, her eyes fixed on the counter to hide her anger. As Malcolm prepared to leave, he noticed Jack's open notebook on the workbench, showing detailed sketches of an alternative engine design. Without asking, he picked it up. Quite the imagination you have here, he said with a smirk, flipping through the pages carelessly. Playing inventor in your spare time? Those are private, sir, Jack said firmly, reaching for the notebook. Malcolm held it away, continuing to scan the designs with amusement. Interesting hobby. Completely impractical, of course, but everyone needs dreams, right? He tossed the notebook back on the bench. Even people who will never have the resources to pursue them. He climbed into his now quiet sports car. If it starts making noise again, I'll be back. Try to stock some decent coffee by then. With that parting shot, he drove away, leaving Jack and Emma standing in silence. Why do you let people like that talk to you that way, Dad? Emma asked, her voice tight with emotion. Jack put his arm around her shoulders. Because what he thinks doesn't matter, Em. I know who I am and what I can do. That's enough. But that night, after Emma went to bed, Jack pulled out his notebook again, staring at the designs Malcolm had mocked. They represented years of thinking about more efficient, powerful engine designs, ideas that had never had the chance to be tested. With a sigh, he closed the book and placed it on his bedside table, returning to the reality of bills that needed to be paid. Over the next few days, Jack continued his usual routine, fixing cars, balancing books, helping Emma with college applications. Malcolm Reed and his disdainful comments became just another unpleasant memory in a life that had seen its share of hardships. On Wednesday afternoon, Mrs. Peterson brought in her ancient sedan for its regular oil change. Emma was handling the paperwork when she glanced up at the small television mounted in the corner of the waiting area. Her jaw dropped. Dad, she called urgently. Dad, you need to see this. Jack emerged from under a car, wiping his hands. On the screen was Malcolm Reed at some corporate event, but what caught Jack's attention was what Malcolm was holding. Jack's notebook, open to one of his engine designs. And here's an example of the kind of impractical thinking that plagues small businesses, Malcolm was saying to an interviewer. A local mechanic who thinks he's reinventing the combustion engine. He laughed, and the camera zoomed in on the detailed sketches. He posted it on social media too, Emma said, already scrolling through her phone. Look, he's making fun of you to his followers. Jack stared at the screen, a cold feeling settling in his stomach. It wasn't just the mockery that bothered him. It was seeing his private work displayed without permission, treated as a joke for public amusement. It doesn't matter, he said finally, though his voice lacked conviction. Let's finish Mrs. Peterson's car. The next morning, Jack arrived early to open the garage. As he unlocked the front door, he noticed a sleek black car pulled up alongside. Not Malcolm's sports car, but something even more exclusive, a vehicle Jack recognized immediately as a prototype from Ferrari's testing division. A tall woman in an impeccable suit emerged, surveying the garage with keen eyes. Are you Jack Wilson? She asked with a slight Italian accent. Yes, ma'am, Jack replied, wiping his hands clean. How can I help you? My name is Dr. Alessandra Rossi, head of engineering at Ferrari. She extended her hand. I'd like to discuss your engine design innovations. Jack stood motionless, confusion evident on his face. I'm sorry, but there must be some mistake. I'm just a mechanic. Dr. Rossi smiled. We both know that's not entirely true, Mr. Wilson. May we speak inside? Still bewildered, Jack led her into the garage office. Emma arrived moments later, freezing in the doorway when she saw the Ferrari parked outside. Your daughter? Dr. Rossi asked as Emma entered. Yes, this is Emma, Jack confirmed. Emma, this is Dr. Rossi from Ferrari. Ferrari? Emma repeated, her eyes widening. The Ferrari? Dr. Rossi nodded, then turned back to Jack. Mr. Wilson, I'll be direct. Yesterday, one of our junior engineers was scrolling through social media when he came across a post by Malcolm Reed. She pulled out her tablet, showing Jack the post, Malcolm mockingly, displaying Jack's notebook. Our engineer noticed something extraordinary in the background of his photo. We enhanced the image and were quite impressed. These designs address problems we've been working on for years. Those are my dad's engine designs, Emma said proudly. He's been working on them forever. I can see that, Dr. Rossi replied. The thermal efficiency approach alone is revolutionary. And there's more, she swiped to another screen. The modifications you made to Mr. Reed's car? That model has a known issue that our competitors haven't publicly acknowledged. Yet you diagnosed and temporarily fixed it in under 2 hours, without access to proprietary information. Jack struggled to process what was happening. Those designs were just theoretical. I never had the resources to test them. We do, Dr. Rossi replied simply. And we'd like to offer you a consulting position to develop these ideas further, with potential for patents under your name. We've already created a prototype based on your thermal transfer concept, and the results are exceptional. She named a figure for the consulting work that made Emma squeal, and Jack grabbed the desk for support. This is some kind of joke, he said quietly. Did Malcolm put you up to this? Dr. Rossi's expression hardened. Mr. Reed is actually the reason I came, personally. When our team reached out to him about the image he posted, asking about you, he dismissed you as some nobody mechanic and suggested we not waste our time. That's when I decided to find you myself. She pulled out another tablet, showing Jack a simulation of his engine design in action. This is not a joke, Mr. Wilson. This is business. Revolutionary business. As the reality sank in, Jack's hands, those same hands Malcolm had viewed with contempt, trembled slightly as he took the tablet, watching his long-dismissed ideas come to life in sophisticated simulations. There's an automotive innovation conference in Detroit next week, Dr. Rossi continued. We'd like you to attend as our guest. Your design will be featured in our keynote presentation, with full credit to you, of course. Detroit, Jack echoed, thinking of the garage, his responsibilities. Dad, we can close for a week, Emma said, her eyes shining. Mrs. Peterson can wait for her oil change. Dr. Rossi smiled. We've already arranged accommodations for both of you. Ferrari takes care of its own. As she departed, promising to send contract details, Jack and Emma stood in stunned silence in their modest garage, a space that suddenly felt different, filled with new possibilities. Dad? Emma finally whispered. What are you thinking? Jack looked at the worn notebook that had just changed their lives. I'm thinking that sometimes being underestimated might be the greatest advantage of all. The Detroit Convention Center hummed with activity as the International Automotive Innovation Conference entered its second day. Jack, dressed in a new suit that still felt foreign against his skin, sat in the front row beside Emma, who couldn't stop snapping photos of everything. Dad, there's Malcolm Reed, Emma whispered, nodding toward the entrance. Jack turned to see Malcolm confidently striding in, flanked by assistants. He hadn't seen Jack yet and was working the room with practiced charm, shaking hands with industry leaders. Jack noticed several people giving Malcolm cold shoulders, something the CEO seemed oblivious to. Don't worry about him, Jack told Emma, though his own stomach tightened. Despite Dr. Rossi's assurances, part of him still feared this was all an elaborate mistake. The Ferrari presentation was scheduled as the day's highlight. As attendees took their seats, Dr. Rossi approached Jack. Ready? She asked with a confident smile. For what exactly? Jack asked. You mentioned I'd be recognized, but not that I'd need to do anything. Plans have evolved, she replied. The industry response to your design has been overwhelming. We'd like you to briefly explain your thought process during the presentation." Before Jack could protest, the lights dimmed and Ferrari's CEO took the stage, beginning a presentation about innovation and the future of automotive design. Jack barely heard the words, his heart pounding in his ears. From his seat a few rows back, Malcolm scrolled through emails on his phone, paying minimal attention until a familiar image appeared on the massive screen. Jack's notebook sketch, now professionally rendered into a three-dimensional model. "This revolutionary approach to thermal efficiency," the CEO was saying, "represents the most significant engine innovation we've seen in a decade. And now, I'd like to introduce the brilliant mind behind it." Jack felt Dr. Rossi's hand on his shoulder, gently guiding him to stand. "Please welcome automotive engineer Jack Wilson." The spotlight found Jack as applause filled the room. Emma gave him an encouraging push, and somehow he found himself walking toward the stage. As he passed Malcolm's row, he caught the CEO's shocked expression, mouth literally hanging open, phone forgotten in his hand. On stage, Jack took a deep breath and began explaining his design in the simple, intuitive way he'd always understood engines. His initial nervousness faded as he spoke about concepts he'd refined in his mind for years, pointing out elements on the large display. The audience, filled with the industry's top engineers and executives, listened with rapt attention. In the third row, Malcolm shifted uncomfortably, his expression cycling between disbelief and growing alarm. When Jack finished, the applause was immediate and enthusiastic. During the question and answer session that followed, respected engineers asked insightful questions, addressing Jack as a peer. With each confident answer, Jack stood taller, his natural expertise shining through. During a break, Jack found himself surrounded by industry leaders offering business cards and congratulations. Emma watched proudly from the sidelines, capturing everything on her phone. "Mr. Wilson," called a familiar voice cutting through the crowd. Malcolm Reed approached, wearing a strained smile. "What a surprise to see you here. Had I known about your hidden talents, I would have approached our conversation differently the other day." Jack simply nodded, aware of the attentive ears around them. "Perhaps we could discuss a potential role at Reed Enterprises," Malcolm continued smoothly. "I'm always looking for innovative minds, and clearly you've been hiding yours under a bushel." Before Jack could respond, a distinguished older man joined their circle. "Jack Wilson, Harold Barnes, Editor-in-Chief of Automotive Engineering Today. We'd love to feature your story and designs in our next issue." "His story?" Malcolm interjected with forced joviality. "Jack and I go way back. In fact, I was one of the first to recognize his potential when he serviced my car." Harold's eyebrows rose. "Really? That's not what I heard." He turned to his tablet. "In fact, I believe I saw something recently." He pulled up Malcolm's social media post. The mocking photo of Jack's notebook with the caption, "Local mechanic thinks he's Enzo Ferrari. Stick to oil changes, buddy." The group fell silent. Malcolm's face reddened. "That was just a bit of fun between friends," he attempted, placing a hand on Jack's shoulder. Jack gently removed the hand. "We're not friends, Mr. Reed. You were a customer who made it very clear what you thought of me." Dr. Rossi, who had been watching the exchange, stepped forward. "Mr. Reed, I believe Ferrari sent your office several inquiries about Mr. Wilson after you posted that image. Your assistant informed us that he was just some nobody not worth our time." Malcolm's assistant Thomas, standing nearby, suddenly became intensely interested in his shoes. "There's been a misunderstanding," Malcolm insisted, his confident facade cracking. "Thomas must have acted without my knowledge." "Actually, sir," Thomas said quietly, "I have the email records of your exact instructions." The crowd around them had grown, with more industry professionals witnessing Malcolm's discomfort. Someone in the back was filming with their phone. Harold Barnes smiled thinly. "This gets more interesting by the minute. Mr. Wilson, I'd love to hear more about how your designs were discovered, despite Mr. Reed's assessment of your abilities." Jack, who had remained calm throughout the exchange, finally spoke. "I think there's a larger story here than just me or Mr. Reed. It's about how expertise and innovation can come from unexpected places when given the chance." His measured response earned approving nods from those gathered around. "In fact," Jack continued, addressing the group rather than just Malcolm. "I've been thinking about how many other mechanics, technicians, and self-taught experts might have valuable insights that never reach the right ears because they don't have the right credentials or connections." Dr. Rossi nodded enthusiastically. "This is precisely why Ferrari is launching a new innovation scouting initiative, with Mr. Wilson's discovery as our inspiration." Malcolm, realizing he was losing control of the narrative, made one last attempt. "Jack, perhaps we could discuss this privately? I think there's a mutually beneficial arrangement." "I don't think so, Mr. Reed," Jack interrupted politely but firmly. "But I am curious about something. The automotive parts company you recently acquired and restructured. Did you evaluate their experimental research division before shutting it down?" Malcolm blinked, caught off guard. "That was a business decision based on profitability metrics." "Interesting," Jack replied. "Because their research team was working on components that would pair perfectly with my engine design. Together, they could have increased efficiency by another 15%, according to Dr. Rossi's simulations." The industry leaders surrounding them murmured with interest, several taking notes. "Those components are now being developed by Ferrari instead," Dr. Rossi added. "We've already filed preliminary patents." Malcolm's face drained of color as he realized the magnitude of his miscalculation, not just in dismissing Jack, but in the hasty business decision that had now benefited a competitor. As videos of the exchange began circulating online, the story quickly transformed. The underestimated small-town mechanic, whose brilliant designs were mocked by a CEO only to be recognized by Ferrari. By evening, Malcolm's original mocking post had been resurfaced thousands of times, juxtaposed with images of Jack on stage presenting his innovations. The conference concluded with Jack signing a formal consulting agreement with Ferrari. As he and Emma prepared to return home, Dr. Rossi approached with an additional offer. "We'd like to establish a regional innovation center," she explained. "A place where talented mechanics and self-taught engineers can bring their ideas forward for evaluation and potential development. We were hoping you might consider directing it." Jack looked at her in surprise. "I don't have the credentials for something like that." "You have something far more valuable," she replied. "The ability to recognize practical genius in unexpected places because you've lived it." That evening, during the conference's closing reception, Jack stood somewhat awkwardly in a corner, still adjusting to his new reality. A reporter approached, asking about his journey from small-town mechanic to automotive innovator. "The most valuable lesson," Jack reflected, "is that real expertise isn't always found where you expect it. Sometimes it's in a small garage or a high school workshop or a farm equipment shed. Genius doesn't wait for the right credentials or the right opportunities. It solves problems with whatever tools are available." The story spread beyond automotive circles, resonating with people who saw their own unrecognized talents in Jack's journey. Letters and emails poured in from mechanics and self-taught experts around the country, sharing their innovations and thanking Jack for giving them hope. 6 months later, Jack stood in his newly expanded garage, now officially Wilson Automotive Engineering. The modest space had been transformed with state-of-the-art equipment, much of it provided by his consulting clients, who now included 3 major European manufacturers. He ran his hand along a prototype engine mounted on a testing rig, the physical manifestation of his notebook sketches, now refined through collaboration with professional engineers. His patent certificates hung framed on the wall, alongside Emma's acceptance letter to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's mechanical engineering program. "The simulation results came back even better than expected," called a voice from the office doorway. Dr. Rossi, now Alessandro, to Jack, walked in carrying a tablet. Their professional relationship had evolved into a comfortable collaboration and friendship over the months of working together. "The thermal efficiency is unprecedented," she continued, showing him the data. "Production models could be ready by next quarter, if the board approves." Jack nodded, studying the numbers. "The real test will be long-term durability. Theory and simulation can only tell us so much." "Always the perfectionist," Alessandro smiled. "This is why Ferrari values your perspective. You think like both an engineer and a mechanic, who has to fix these engines in the real world." The front bell chimed, and Emma's voice carried from the reception area. "Dad, the film crew is here." Automotive Engineering Today's documentary team filed in, equipment in hand. After the Detroit conference, Jack's story had resonated far beyond the automotive world, becoming a symbol of overlooked talent and second chances. "Mr. Wilson, where would you like to start?" asked the producer. Jack gestured around the garage, where it all began, with fixing cars and solving problems. As the crew set up, Jack noticed Emma deep in conversation with their young sound engineer. He'd seen that expression before, the same animation in her features that appeared when she discussed engineering concepts that excited her. The young man was listening intently, clearly captivated. The documentary interview covered Jack's journey, his interrupted education, years as a small-town mechanic, and the unexpected turn of events that brought his innovations to light. When they asked about Malcolm Reed, Jack chose his words carefully. "Mr. Reed's actions ultimately connected me with people who recognized the value in my work. I can't be angry about that outcome." "That's remarkably gracious," the interviewer noted, especially considering his company's financial troubles since the Detroit conference. Jack shrugged. "Success and failure both reveal character. I'm focused on building something meaningful, not celebrating someone else's downfall." After the crew packed up, Alessandro lingered, reviewing project timelines with Jack. As they worked, she casually mentioned, "I've been offered a position to head Ferrari's new North American research division." "That's fantastic," Jack said. "They couldn't choose anyone better. Where will you be based?" "That's actually something I wanted to discuss with you," she replied. "The board is considering several locations, including one just 30 minutes from here." Jack looked up from the blueprints, meeting her gaze. "Really? What would be the advantage of this area?" "Proximity to emerging talent," she said with a small smile, "and the opportunity to continue our collaboration more conveniently." The moment lingered between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. Their conversation was interrupted by Emma bursting into the workshop. "Dad, I just got invited to present our joint project at the Student Engineering Symposium at MIT next month." She noticed Alessandra and grinned. "Oh, hi, Dr. Rossi. Are you staying for dinner again?" "I'd like that," Alessandra replied, exchanging a warm glance with Jack. Later that evening, after dinner and after Alessandra had left, Jack drove to the small cemetery on the edge of town. He hadn't visited his wife's grave in months, but today felt different. He placed fresh flowers beside the headstone. "I wish you could see Emma now, Sarah," he said quietly. "She's going to MIT in the fall. Everything we dreamed for her." He paused, running his fingers along the cool stone. "And I'm finally doing what you always believed I could. Remember those designs you used to encourage me to submit to manufacturers? Turns out you were right all along." The following day, Jack pulled up to Millfield High School, where he'd been invited to speak to the engineering club. The same teenagers who had once known him only as Emma's dad who fixes cars now looked at him with new respect and curiosity. "I'm not here to tell you that every dream comes true," he began, "or that if you just believe in yourself, success will magically appear. What I can tell you is that expertise and knowledge are valuable, no matter where they come from. Your ideas matter, even when the world isn't ready to hear them." One student raised her hand. "Did you ever think about giving up on your designs?" Jack considered the question. "Every single day. But I kept drawing them anyway, not because I thought they'd make me famous or rich, but because solving those problems gave me purpose. That's the secret. Find work that feels meaningful, even when no one's watching or applauding." After the talk, Jack opened the workshop doors to a line of students eager to show him their own projects and ideas. He recognized in their nervous explanations and hopeful eyes the same passion that had kept him sketching by lamplight all those years. That weekend, Jack finally made good on a promise he'd made to Emma years ago but could never afford to keep. He took her to the National Automotive Museum, where they spent hours examining the evolution of engine design throughout history. "You know," Emma said as they studied a display, "your designs might be in a museum like this someday." Jack smiled. "Maybe. But what matters more is that you'll be designing the future, not just reading about it." As they walked through the museum, a familiar face approached. Thomas, Malcolm Reed's former assistant. "Mr. Wilson," he said hesitantly, "I wasn't sure if you'd want to speak with me, but I wanted to apologize for my part in how Mr. Reed treated you." Jack shook his hand. "No apologies needed. You were doing your job." "Actually," Thomas continued, "I'm not working for him anymore. I've started at an engineering firm that's developing educational programs for unconventional talent. Your story inspired a lot of changes in how companies think about innovation. As Thomas walked away, Emma nudged her father. See? You're changing things already. That evening as they drove home, Jack received a call from Alessandro. We've finalized the location for the North American Research Center, she said. Construction begins next month just outside Millfield. I'll be relocating permanently in about 6 weeks. That's wonderful news, Jack replied, aware of Emma's knowing smile beside him. The area will benefit tremendously from having Ferrari's presence. I was hoping we might discuss it further, Alessandro continued, perhaps over dinner, just the two of us this time. Jack felt an unexpected flutter of nervousness, something he hadn't experienced in years. I'd like that very much. After ending the call, he caught Emma's amused expression. What? He asked. Nothing, she replied innocently, just wondering if Ferrari's engineering genius will figure out she's been looking at you like that for months now. Jack laughed, surprised at how light his heart felt. Tomorrow he would return to the garage, to engines that needed fixing and innovations that needed refining. But for the first time in nearly 18 years, he was beginning to see a future beyond work and responsibility, one where his own happiness might also have a place. As they pulled into their driveway, the setting sun cast a golden glow over the expanded garage that now housed both his past and his future. Jack paused for a moment, taking in the sight of what his life had become. Dad? Emma asked. Everything okay? Jack nodded, smiling at his daughter. Everything's perfect, Em. For the first time in a very long time, everything's perfect.